Hello, everyone. Welcome to the OT No, I'm so used to saying OT Latina. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the OT Pláticas podcast. For those of you who are new here and don't really know what I do, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist, and I'm also the writer and creator of the OT Latina blog. So let's talk a little bit about where my podcast title came from because I feel like that's very important in being able to understand where I'm coming from with this podcast. So, OT Pláticas came about, one, because I'm an OT, duh. And two, because I, when I first started OT Latina, um, I had a blog, and one of my very first posts was about curanderismo. Now, curanderismo is a traditional Mexican folk healing system that's still like widely used, maybe not as formal, but for example, I grew up with curanderismo. My mom was considered a non formal curandera. So, what that means or what that translates to is healer. So, there's different beliefs, and I'll have a podcast all on its own regarding curanderismo, different beliefs, what it's about. Um, but for example, if you're Latinx, you already know what like things are like malojo, empacho, susto. So different beliefs like that. I'll get more into it in a different podcast. But there is a strategy. There is something in curanderismo called a plática. And so what a plática is a soul to soul conversation, almost like a therapy session, but it's deeper because you're trying to get to the root of the soul. And when you get to the root of the soul and root of the issue, you're able to, I guess, kind of like recommend or prescribe different, not medications, but different like herbal remedies or just like remedies in general, rituals that that person can perform in order to maybe alleviate some of the pressure that they're feeling, or maybe some of those dark feelings that they're feeling or dark energies. And so, with this podcast idea, I decided to name it OT Pláticas because yeah, I this is a podcast where I just kind of want to bare my soul and talk about anything that I find interesting, which is kind of like a lot of things. Kind of like scattered brain. So yeah, that's where OT Pláticas came from essentially. So we're gonna have and Pláticas translates directly into like talks. So like OT talks if you don't speak Spanish. That's the other thing about this podcast. It's going to be like bilingual. Okay, I'm going to speak in English y también voy a hablar en español. And it's going to be like that. And if you don't speak Spanish, that's totally okay. Like, you don't have to speak Spanish in order to be a part of this podcast. Like, I want this podcast to be inclusive of everybody. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm trying to take this. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to try to do something different. I've been getting back to some of the things that I'm more interested in, like spirituality, uh, holistic healing and wellness, and just more non traditional ways of doing occupational therapy. And yeah, I want to talk about all of that in this podcast, along with things that aren't just OT. So I want to gain perspective from maybe other healthcare professionals on topics like neuroscience. I want to talk about spirituality. I want to talk about elevating other Latino voices, whether they're entrepreneurs, business owners, or maybe they're Latinx healthcare professionals, or maybe they're just doing something different within the OT space. And yeah, I just want to talk about it. So if this podcast sounds interesting to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I will be coming out with my first episode, and it's a little out there, but I wanted to start with something that was, I don't want to say shocking because like for me it's not shocking, but something that's just like not normal to talk about within the OT space. And so I'm going to be talking about how magic mushrooms or hallucinogenics helped shape my perspective on treating certain patients of mine with autism spectrum disorder and their sensory experiences. So, yeah, stick around for that episode. That one's coming out really soon. I'm just kind of hoping to get this going and really just make this a space of my own. And yeah, I'm trying to be more authentic to who I am. And yes, while I am a occupational therapist and a majority of what I post is about that, I just feel like there's a side of me that people don't really know. And I'm yeah, I just want to talk about things, and I want to have discussions, and I don't want it all just to be related to OT as much as I love it, but there's just so much perspective out there that we can gain from others. And I just so happen to be an occupational therapist, and I love that. And the great thing about occupational therapy is that you can discuss so many topics, wide range of subjects, and it can also be through that OT lens, right? Because OT is in everything. And this is just like the next step for me. And I really hope that this is something that OTs would like to listen to, doctors, therapists, nurses. I want to have it all on this podcast. There's no holding back. The sky's the limit. I am not held by any boundaries here. So if this sounds like the podcast for you, go ahead and hit subscribe and let's get on this ride together.